Welcome back to Pinstripe Pulse. Um, Jake, what the fuck?
I was going to ask you the same exact question, honestly. And this one hurts even more just because the Knicks also had a very bad game today. I don't know if you got to watch any of the first round against the Heat, but the offense just fell apart completely in the second half, and it was tough because they had a pretty good stronghold on the game in the first quarter, and then it just kind of went downhill from there. So I was already on like a kind of gray, hazy mood to match the weather outside, and then on top of that, the Yankees did exactly kind of what we expected out of them, except to like the umpteenth degree in terms of just being a bad team today. They've been a bad team this entire series. They were a bad team in the Twin series as well, and it's just a tough watch all in all. So I think there's just a lot of frustration emulating in the air and accumulating at this moment.
We are recording this after a rainy day here in New York as it just poured outside and it was all gloomy. And the Yankees went down 15-2 after one of our most impressive rallies of the last week, putting together a run in the bottom of the ninth inning, down by 14 runs
On a
against the
bases
Texas
loaded.
Rangers on a bases loaded walk. IKF got a hit to get us there. Jake, if I told you in the last 7 days since we recorded our last episode, the Yankees scored this many runs each game in order: 1 run, 2 runs, 12 runs, 4 runs, 2 runs, 0 runs, 2 runs. How many games would you have said that we won?
Probably two. If I'm just thinking realistically, the 12 run game typically it's like not a shootout. It's normally lopsided when you see double digits, and then the 4 run game could be a toss up, especially if you have one of your better pitchers on the mound. So I would go with two.
And we were damn lucky that we won the 4 run game because that was the Garrett Cole start. And that seems to be the only thing that's going for us. I mean, you'd set the over under at 1.5 there, I would think. Um, it's crazy. The Yankees went 2-5 against teams that historically the Yankees go into a road trip thinking we should win both of these series, or we should at least come out on top going to Minnesota and into Texas. Um, and they just did it. And there's a lot going on with this team. I mean, some housekeeping we should take care of. Aaron Judge is hurt, and we'll get into it. The one game that we won on his birthday, Aaron Judge had an ill-advised attempted steal of third base in which he just slid really awkwardly. Seemed to have some hand issues, and ultimately it seems that it's now a hip issue, just from landing really awkwardly, trying to get around a tag that he was just beat by so much on. The Yankees called up Jake Bauers from the minor league system, who was among the leaders in minor league baseball of home runs, playing in Scranton. He came in his what was it, the first or second inning,
First
his
inning,
diving catch?
first inning with two
Yeah,
outs and the runner on second. Like granted, it's one of the best plays I've seen in a long time. To go full force into a wall like that at such a low level. I don't. Did you get to watch that play a few times?
yep.
The high impact on that is insane, and the fact that he was able to keep the like hand-eye coordination in order to make that catch in the first place is nothing short of remarkable. But it did give me the vibes of, what was it, Dustin Fowler, Nick Fowler, something like that. He was the prospect that got called up, I want to say in 2018 or 2019, that ran down the right
Oh,
field wall, and
yeah, I
he
forget his
ended
name.
up
Yeah.
tearing his ACL, but it was a very similar type of play. So Bowers comes in there and he was supposed to be kind of the offensive call up, and he ends up banging into the wall, and he is waiting on those MRI results. But any kind of knee injury like that is going to set you out at least for a few weeks minimum, especially like if there's a tear, then he's out minimum 4 to 6 weeks. So that's just a really brutal blow, and like it's a full effort play that we haven't really seen too much of from outfielders in this game or this team so far. Um, but it's just kind of a microcosm of how this team has looked in the last 2 weeks or so.
Let's do a quick recap of this Twin series first, and then we'll get into our brutal four gamer with the Rangers. This Twin series wasn't much better, man. I mean, it was just bad watches Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of last week. First game, Yankees lose 6-1. Naturally, Sonny Gray and Joey Gallo kill us. Brito looked better than he did in his last start against the Twins, which the bar was literally on the floor. He looked pretty tough. Only ended up going 3 and some change, giving up 4 earned. Yeah. So Brito gets handed the loss there. The Yankees put together 6 hits. And they follow that up with a Nestor start day in which you think Nestor might be able to get something going for you. Nestor goes 5, gives up 3. He looked decent, not good, but I mean, starting pitching going 5, giving up 3 shouldn't be an automatic loss. But for this version of the Yankees, it is. Only positive. Volpe had 2 hits that day. I don't think there were any extra base hits on the Yankees end. They put together 2 runs. And then they come in for the afternoon getaway day and put up a number on Maeda. I mean, Judge has a DH day. He puts up 3 hits, looks really good. The Yankees are finally stringing together some runs. But that just gets dampened by the fact that Judge on a silly steal of third that we didn't need goes down. And that's really going to adversely impact this team for the next at least few weeks.
Yeah. There was really not many positives to look forward to. I mean, the Maeda start obviously is like an obvious, like, yeah, we got one. Problem is that it felt like the tides were turning when Judge started to turn it around, and he is having a great game, and we're off to this hot start against him, and then that slide into third base, it felt like the tides shifted right back to any other team but the Yankees. And then we've just been in a downfall ever since that point, just free fall.
Yeah, and like the Twins, once the Yankees put up a few, didn't even have any interest in winning that game. Maeda is coming back, trying to rehab. He's had some injury issues of recent. And they just let him rip. Like Maeda was on the mound after giving up 9 earned runs.
It was a rehab
And they,
start for him.
yeah. So at that point, they were just letting him go. So I mean, props to the Yankees for hitting a pitcher that was figuring things out and didn't look good, and putting guys on and then putting balls right over the plate. It was nice to see the Yankees string together some hits because it seemed they had been relying on the occasional home run of recent. But I think that was an obvious anomaly as we moved into the Rangers series. And yeah, do you want to talk about the Yankees had a 2-game win streak this week? What a time that was.
I honestly completely forgot about
But
game 1 of the Rangers series. Yeah,
yeah.
that feels so long ago at this point, just because of the sheer amount of runs that they've given up since game 1.
Yeah, so the Yankees went into Texas, Garrett Cole on the mound against an old friend, Andrew Heaney. Heaney, who had a resurgent year with the Dodgers last year, got his payday, or got a bit of a payday from the Rangers to come over to them for their new and improved rotation, which we saw the worst of on our end this weekend. But Cole goes in and has another awesome day. He gives a performance that we desperately needed, that ultimately we're relying a bit too much on right now, because I think once Cole inevitably has a game or two that are bad, we could get in a situation where we're going 3-10, or 3-7 or 2-8 over a 10-game stretch. And that's just not what a team in this AL East can do. But Cole goes 6 strong. He gives up 2 where they both earned. They kind of shouldn't have been earned. I think one of them ends up being earned technically, but he gets out of that 6th inning shutout if he gets the bag in time and squeezes that ball. So it is on him,
Yeah.
I guess. But yeah, he goes 6 2/3. Both of them end up being earned, because you can't assume the double play being made on that second out. But I think he would have gone 7 shutout had it not been for that. And even so, it was a pretty smooth win, even though only 4-2 for the Yankees.
Yeah, I mean, Cole is essentially the only thing to not be concerned about with this team at this point in the season. He's just cemented himself as top 3 best pitchers in the league at this very moment. I think him and Sonny Gray are probably in the front running for Cy Young at the moment. And even when he doesn't have his sharpest stuff, he has shown a capability this season that we haven't seen out of him to be able to induce the double play ball or the soft contact. at any given moment, rather than just relying on the 3-2 strikeouts, the like longer ABs where it's like 7-8 pitches are seen, and he ends up getting what 10 to 11 strikeouts, but he ends up going 5 to 6 innings. You're seeing him go deeper into games at this rate, and I think he would have gotten an easy 7 innings if it wasn't for that one botched PFP. And he would be the first to tell you he needs to make that play every time. But it ultimately didn't matter because they pull this one out, and you feel like you're confident when he's on the mound. That's the only pitcher you can say that there's certainty right now around his starts. I mean, we said that last season about Nestor. He was kind of the stopper where he would come into, like let's say the Yankees were on a 2 or 3 game skid. You need that pitcher to come in and set things right. That was Nestor for the majority of last season. And right now, it feels like the only person that's capable of that is Garrett Cole.
And this was a feel-good start. Like after this game, the Yankees went Cole to Mike King.
Yeah.
Cole with the win, King with the save. And after this, like the bench coaches and Boone like pumped their fists in the dugout after strike 3 that King got to end the game. And it was a feel-good win because the Yankees put up a big number the day before, and then they had a decent offensive day, scoring 4 runs. But even then, like it felt like the Yankees, all right, the bats are alive. Like DJ goes yard and Glaber backs it up. I'm going back to back off of Heaney, and then Trevino gets that insurance run homer in the end of the game. But the Yankees offensively were still quiet this game, and ultimately it was, you can argue, the 2 best players at what they do in the league. You can argue that Garrett Cole is the best 7 inning starter, and you can argue that Michael King is the best 2 inning reliever, and that's exactly what they did. And the Yankees just scratched out a victory against a team that has been low to mid end of the AL West. I know they're leading the AL West now over the Astros, over the Angels that have a lot of talent. But it was a feel good win. We came in, the Rangers have been putting up big offensive numbers, and we'll see some of that, but it felt good coming in. Okay, like Cole can stop them. The Yankees are still the Yankees. They have a chance, but I think our hopes quickly waned going into game 2.
I mean, you've got a DeGrom start, and anytime there's a DeGrom start, there's a chance that he's going to come out perfect and then ends up at some point or another having to come out of the game early with an injury. And that is exactly what we saw happen. I think that's another reason why it's all the more important that they won that first game. It prevents the 4-game sweep. And I know that's like a negative mindset to have, but that's kind of what we have to hang our hat on right now is DeGrom came in and he looked just as spectacular as he always does. We've been to a perfect game in the making for DeGrom where he went 9 straight outs without giving up a hit, striking out 8. It was very similar to that. Dude's pumping 100 miles an hour on his fastball. Everything has life. Everything's biting. And then he comes out with forearm tightness. So I can't imagine the frustration that Rangers fans have with that. It's got to suck because, I mean, watching him pitch is a spectacle. But he had the Yankees numbers that entire game up until when he left. And he gave them, 3 innings, I want to say? Was it 3 or 4?
A little over 3. I think it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me check the box.
I will say this was Johnny Brito start, right?
Clark
Schmidt's. So this was one of Clark's better games all in all. There's not a lot to.
He gave up 5 earned in 3 innings.
That's
But
what I'm saying.
I mean, yeah,
like
you're right, but it's like,
it's terrible
what's the
that
bar?
that shouldn't be the bar, but it is the bar right now. He struck out 8, whatever. It doesn't matter. The fact of the matter is he gave up a ton of runs, and if there's more than a 3-run deficit for this Yankees team, it's insurmountable. They can't come back if there's a multi-run deficit, and we just saw that on full display once again today. In game 1, they scored the 4 runs, which feels great in the moment for this team, but if you look at the league, that's below league average per game. It's subpar standards that we're having to hold ourselves to right now, and that's terrible. And this game just had a negative tone to me the entire time.
Yeah, DeGrom went 3 2/3. And gutted for DeGrom. I mean, the injury issues are so tough. He's one of the iconic pitchers of this generation that I think is not going to be remembered as such just because of his lack of longevity. The best pitcher I've ever seen live, and I think Garrett Cole is the best pitcher in baseball right now. DeGrom is that next tier, even above him. But you would figure the Yankees would be opportunistic, and it just didn't come to fruition. I mean, and what do you expect when you have a Friday night DeGrom Clark matchup? I mean, Clark Schmidt, right now we talked about percentages of wins based on starting pitching, right? Last time.
Mhm.
DeGrom, 4 out of every 5 days is an automatic loss. Sorry, not DeGrom. Clark being on the mound, 4 out of every 5 days, automatic loss. And then that fifth day is a coin flip. And then against the Blue Jays, that was where we lost the coin flip because Clark had a great outing and we just made a few errors. And all of a sudden it matches up that we still lose that game. We've won one Clark Schmidt start. Despite him, I think he only went 3 innings that day in Cleveland. So I don't know. It goes back to our roster construction issue that we talked about last time. Go check out the TikTok that we put out there. This game just seemed like destined to fail, and the destiny came to fruition.
I think we have to kind of go off on the Yankees for a second, just because like we're going to get to it at some point or another. I feel like we've been especially lenient with this front office in terms of we gave them a lot of opportunities in the offseason. We kept on saying that they were bound to make another big move. They said they weren't done yet after the Rodon deal. And then they end up signing Franchy Cordero, and you're like, all right, that might be a nice little pickup. And then he showed real quick that he can't hit the off-speed pitch at the MLB level. And they haven't done anything to deserve the respect out of the fans from this point onwards, especially fans that watch enough baseball to understand that this lineup isn't sustainable for an entire season. So we have to question what the fuck is happening right now. What plan do you have moving forward to actually make this team better? Because yes, if Stanton and Judge come back, that's great. You've got 2 more big studs. But you've got guys like Anthony Rizzo that's on this team, and he's not producing with runners in scoring position. He's got great numbers at the moment. That doesn't matter when he's not hitting with guys on second and third and 1 out, and you're losing 4-1. I've seen that scenario unfold how many times in the last 2 weeks? It's absurd at this point. Gleyber Torres is having a good season, but it's going to get overshadowed every time when he's not driving in meaningful runs. I mean, there's a lot of holes in this offense where, like, yes, Harrison Bader is going to be coming back, but he's also off to a slow start in his rehab assignments. There's no guarantee that he's going to come back to his form of what he was in the playoffs last season. I just don't see too much of a silver lining offensively right now. We'll be getting Sevy back. We'll be getting Rodon back at some point, but that's not enough. And this is a stacked.
That's not even the issue.
Yeah, exactly.
The last 7 days, I read the scores. What would Sevy and Rodon have done differently?
Yeah, that's my whole point.
Throw complete game shutouts?
It doesn't matter if you have 3 or 4 aces when you can't put up runs on the board. That plain and simple. I don't care how good your pitching is. It doesn't matter when you have a minor league roster going out there every day. And the problem is this minor league roster has a bunch of major league players, like big names on this team. So there clearly has to be some kind of systematic issue, like an ideological, something has to be going on mentally with this team as a collective group and entity for them to be struggling this bad as like a whole. Because I've never seen a team have such high highs and then such low lows. Like last season, it felt like they can come back from any game or like any deficit. How many games did we go to last year where there was they were down like 3 or 4 runs, but we never felt like we were out
in
of
the
it?
ninth inning.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This year, you do not have that feeling whatsoever. And that is startling to me. And I think that immediate change needs to happen. I don't know what that is, but the front office can't continue to roll out this team. It's unacceptable.
I was talking to my girlfriend before about like, she was basically like, what the fuck is going on with the Yankees as we're watching a game that ends up being 15-1 going into the 9th inning. And I was like, well, they've had injuries and, you know, all this stuff. And I was being nice. Like you said, we've been nice, right? And she goes, well, I mean, so they weren't trying to win this year, right? Like they're calling, like they have these rookies playing and like, no, they knew they weren't going to win. But no, they thought they were going to win. And it's this roster construction. Like, all right, Judge is out. Killer. He's the MVP piece, obviously. Big issue. Judge was on this roster for, 10 of those last 14 days, and I'll pull up the last 14-day stats and the last 7-day stats. Yankees have a 72 OPS plus in the last 2 weeks, a 59 OPS plus in the last 7 days. Like that, the fact
Disgust.
that the Yankees are above 500 is a miracle. Like I don't care. Like it's not mismanagement. It's not Aaron Boone.
No,
Like it's not even players are underperforming and the roster is constructed poorly. Like they've been hit with a bunch of curveballs, but I could have told you these curveballs, and we did. Like these issues coming up, there's no depth. Look at who was in the lineup today and yesterday, and they got shut out by Evaldi. Volpe, number one. Today, Peraza hit number two. Both of them arguably AAA players. I agree that they're on the roster, given what we have right now. But if they were playing in AAA right now, no one would look any differently. Willie Calhoun hitting 5, followed by Glaber and DJ. Oswaldo Cabrera, Jake Bowers or Aaron Hicks platooning the last 2 games, and IKF in center. If any of those players were in AAA right now in Scranton, they would be good minor league players, mid
yeah,
to good minor league players. So it's like, what do you expect? You go up against DeGrom, Evaldi, Martin Perez, expecting to score more than 2 runs a game, not with this lineup. And the Yankees could have done something about it. We mentioned it in our free agent episode, having some, Corey Dickerson on the bench, just having some professional depth here. And they're taking, flyers on Rafael Ortega, who had a below 100 OPS plus. Willie Calhoun, who's had a negative WAR, has no defensive value and can run into a homer here and there. You mentioned what's his name, Cordero, who, the same thing. Can he run into one? And the Yankees are just playing a lot of lottery tickets right now, and that's not a winning formula. They're looking for a Matt Carpenter, and they're not looking at the profile of what Matt Carpenter was that got them there. Because Matt Carpenter was an MLB All-Star and had a hit tool and had a leadership presence. And they're just taking a lot of flyers on minor league guys. They're insisting on keeping Aaron Hicks when really we just need a roster spot. We need to try and make a move because this team needs help right now. And this team, even at full strength, I think we saw still needs help to compete with the Blue Jays, with the Rays, even with the Orioles at this point. The Red Sox are the worst team in this division. They're a game behind the Yankees right now.
I think that the Yankees might be in last place right now. I'm not positive. I can't say that for sure, but I did see a few tweets saying that after the loss.
They're 15 and 14. The Red Sox were 500 yesterday. Did they win today?
They might have.
So the Yankees are probably shit on run differential. So they haven't played the Red Sox yet. But yeah, I think the Yankees could technically be in last place. So
That's brutal. And I mean, they deserve it. They fully deserve it at this point. In order for like a cherry on top to like mean anything or to like be good, you need a base, right? You need some kind of foundation. That team doesn't have that right now. So when you get that Matt Carpenter in last season, when everyone else is clicking on all cylinders, that feels amazing because you have low expectations for the guy in the first place, but he's coming in and tearing it up. And you're like, oh, that's just another weapon we have. This year, they're calling up guys like Bowers and hoping to strike gold, but it's like you've got 4 or 5 cherries, but nothing to support them. So what does it matter? Those are going to spoil real quick. And that's what we're seeing out of this team right now.
and what's the answer? Like, what do we is this just what we're living with? Like, what are in the defense of the front office? I think moves should have been made. We should have been prepping for this more. And it felt like they sat on their laurels. But like, what are the fixes? Like, is this leveraging all of our lottery tickets, all of these prospects to get some stars? Like, is that the answer? Like, is it at the level of a Juan Soto? Like Brian Reynolds is out of reach now. He signed a contract this week, which we didn't even think about talking about because of how bad the Yankees have been in the past week. So I think he's off the table because he just came to a deal. Like, is it Shohei? Is it Soto? Is it at that level, or are we looking to supplement otherwise? Or do you think the front office is just looking, okay, when we have Stanton, Judge, and Donaldson back, it'll be fixed, which it won't be.
If that's their mindset, then they need to all be fired. Everyone who's in charge of making decisions on this team needs to go if they are genuinely just waiting on the players that are currently in the system, because those guys, even if they are there, they proved last year, they proved the year before that they aren't capable of bringing in a World Series alone. They need help. That's just plain fact. And at this rate, they'll be lucky if they get a second wild card spot. I don't think that's
Yeah.
far fetched. And I
No,
mean,
you
I think
mentioned
the
it on
best
the last episode. What got the Yankees through the postseason with a terrible month was the Yankees went off in April and May, and that's what we're looking at the Rays. And yeah, the Yankees are, according to MLB.com, are in last place. They only have a +2 run differential after today. Wow, yesterday they had a +15. Now they have a +2. Yeah, they are 15 and 14 in last place in the East. The East is very, very good, but now we're dealing with an issue in that, like, the Yankees can't just use home field or use their benefit of just being the Yankees and going in division and getting those wins. We have so many more spread out games against other teams. But you mentioned it last time, like the Rays and the Orioles and Toronto even is 8 games up. The Orioles are 10 games up. The Rays are, do some math, 17 games over 500.
Mm-hmm.
So the Yankees now, like, you can kiss the division goodbye unless the Yankees put up a 23-6 month, which I don't see them doing unless they have pitchers throwing shutouts every day and it's Sevy, Rodon, and even Montas back, and Nestor hasn't looked good. Like, your competition now are the Angels and the Mariners and the Guardians. Like, you can't be looking up to and the Blue Jays if you can get there. Whoever are the Blue
Yeah.
Jays and the Orioles, but one of them is going to be two. You're looking at a Yankees team. I think the Rays are going to have the division, and then it's a dogfight for those 3 spots, and a lot of good teams. I didn't even talk about the Rangers there because they're leading the West, and you have the Astros, who I think are still going to win that West. It's I don't know. I don't know.
And all of these other teams have something that the Yankees desperately lack, and that's just like moxie and grit. Like, when I watch the Orioles play, I want to root for them. I want to pull for them because they've got tenacity and they've got fire.
Yeah, me
Same
too.
thing with the Rangers. They've got a lot of dudes on the team that just play ball, and that's it. They get down to business. This Yankees team looks lifeless when you see them on the field. They show zero fight whatsoever. If they're down, they're down. The way that we talked about Aaron Hicks the last month, or even going into the from the offseason, that's how we feel about the entire Yankees team right now, just because that's the entire personality, collectively speaking. They don't show anything fun. You've got Oswaldo from time to time throwing his hands up when you're losing 4-1 after hitting a double. Good for you, man. Good for fucking you. That doesn't help us because there's so many more issues in this team. I'm beyond words at this point in terms of what do you need to catch a spark again? And I think that's the only proper reasonable answer to that is bringing in full external turnover. I think you need multiple role players that are going to be beneficial as well as an Ohtani type. Just because at this point the team is well beyond saving if you bring in 1 or 2 pieces at the trade deadline. Just doesn't work out that way.
And looking at the teams that are in tough spots, we're looking at maybe a White Sox fire sale. I mean, the Cardinals, I doubt they're going to be sellers, but they're 8 games under right now. You're looking at the Giants even. Maybe that's Conforto or Jock from there. But those teams, they seem like teams with shit attitudes right now too. Like in Chicago and St. Louis, it seems like it's a hostile place to be around. Just not a lot of motivation from the White Sox. Same thing, weird marble management stuff from the Cardinals, bringing up a top prospect, sending him down after being a league average player, which seemed kind of ridiculous.
Really weird.
I
Really
don't
weird
know.
move.
Who do you, who do you bring in? And it's like, am I picking on Aaron Hicks by being upset at it? I think it was the bottom of the 8th with that double that went over his head with him not running
No,
after the ball that hit on the front of the warning
no,
track.
absolutely not.
Jeff Nelson was like, that's the only thing he can do there. Bull fucking shit.
Yeah.
He took one step lackadaisical step back off the ball and then took a step. Oh, this ball was hit really hard. Oh, it's closer than I thought. Well, now I'm not running. because
Yeah.
he thought that ball was out or off the wall
Mm-hmm.
straight up, and it was 15 feet short, and he was there. And the thing is that like I know he's not playing every day, and I know maybe he doesn't have the same feel for the game, and he's out of it in the plate. His timing's off, and I know he had 2 hits today or yesterday or whatever. There hasn't been hard hit balls. I think it was Katie Sharp or James Smythe that came out with a tweet that Aaron Hicks was 382nd out of 383 eligible MLB players in hard hit rate this year.
Yeah.
Which shows. But the lack of effort, just lackadaisical to the ball. I mean, he caught a ball the other day. The IKF was there running into the wall, and he came in front and made the play, but that seemed even kind of reckless. I understand not having trust in IKF, who's not an outfielder, but I don't know. I can't with him. It just seems like his attitude is like checked out, and it's like the last thing that we need on this team.
Can you imagine what would have happened if he didn't catch the ball that him and ICAF almost collided on? Just like the uproar that you would have seen out of people. And I think the only reason that was avoided is because he simply made the catch. It wasn't a fantastic catch. It was a lucky catch because he had no clue, frankly, how close IKF was to him. That was IKF's ball. He's a center fielder. He's calling it off the entire time. He's going in hot.
Yep.
Hicks is going in hot, even though he has better awareness of where he is because he's played that position a million times. I don't know, man. And he's going to continue to get run out there because after the Bowers injury, like, who else are you going to call up from AAA? Are you going to finally give Everson Pereira and guys like that a shot? They haven't shown any, willingness to pull the trigger
anymore. Like,
yeah, they don't have any options internally at this rate, so they have to look outside. Ramon Laureano, I guess, is someone that you would look into. And then Jock Peterson and, Bellinger, they're all great fits. But the problem is, especially with the Cubs and the Giants, like, I know those teams still have aspirations to make it to the playoffs or make at least a run. So do you really expect them to give up on these guys, especially Bellinger, who's tearing it up right now? You can have potentially MVP Cody Bellinger back at $18 million for the rest of the year. Or I guess it's 15 after the prorated fee right now. Like, would I, if I'm the GM of the Cubs, would I give that up to the Yankees just because they're in a desperate spot? Absolutely not. I'm trying to make a playoff run in an NL Central that is up for grabs right now. So it really makes no sense. And honestly, the really shitty thing to say right now, but it's true. The Yankees at this rate are better off being buyers than they are sellers. If you're looking at it from a completely objective standpoint, in terms of what moves can be made in terms of like bringing back like prospect capital to replenish your farm, because you've called up all these guys already.
Sellers instead of buyers.
Sellers instead of buyers, excuse me. Yeah. I don't want that to happen, but like one that just makes more of a logical approach at this point, unless you are going to be very aggressive at the trade deadline, but also before the trade deadline. You can't let this go into June. If you let this entire team roll out week after week, you're looking at a team that's potentially 10 to 15 games under 500 by mid-May, or like maybe like mid to late May, early June. And at that point, it's just like, what are you even playing for? So they have a lot of serious decisions to make when it comes to like what the outlook of this season looks like.
The Yankees over under on win total at the beginning of the season by most Vegas books was either 90.5 or 91.5. And that was a number that I wanted to hammer the over because I just couldn't imagine this team losing 10 games off of last year, especially playing fewer games in the AL East. And I hammer the over, and the Pacoda projections had like 95, 96 wins, and Fangraphs had like 94, 95. And the Yankees are a big, enticing bet for a lot of Vegas predictions. Like the Yankees numbers of anyone to be inflated because of how popular they are the few that are actually inflated by the market bets as opposed to just the numbers that Vegas has. They're facing a big payday right now because this Yankee team is a 500 team and playing like a well below 500 team. They're playing like a 78 to 82 win team. And the ship is going to have to be righted, and maybe that's just getting 2 aces back to back up Cole, in which we just win series that we have Rodon and Seve on the mound. So it seems like that could just be the answer. Is it two aces coming back, Sevy and Ordon just coming in and winning series because the Yankees give up 3-4 runs in a series because you go cold Rodon, Sevy, or Nestor. But I mean, Nestor's coming a bit back to form. I mean, a bit back to talent. He's a great pitcher, but like expect a mid to high threes ERA. So when he gives you those 5-6 innings, no or one earned, you're gonna have a few of these starts. I mean, this is the worst he's looked in a Yankees uniform, his start today, but his other start against the Twins that we also lost, you can see more of those. And then Rodon and Sevy are gonna be low on innings coming back, rehabbing, especially Sevy. Sevy, we're gonna look at probably a 4 to 5 inning guy all year. I can't imagine him hitting 6 unless it's efficient. So I don't know. We seem very doom and gloom, and this is not an episode I want to be doing in April of all times. But the problem is we've been kind of previewing it. I'm like, oh, the Yankees aren't in a great spot. They're getting by. They're winning series, right? But they're scratching out wins very, very unconvincingly, not having any threat of sweeping. And all of a sudden we go a bad week record wise. We're in last place in the East, and it's just not a good place.
Yeah, it's a rough time right now just for several reasons. And like if that is their plan to bring back Rodon and Sevy on innings counts and just hope for the best in terms of, bullpen games and whatnot, it's not sustainable. It's not a winning formula because you don't have the same capabilities when it comes to stringing together runs that a team like the Cleveland Guardians had last season, who wasn't known to be like a prolific offensive team, yet they were able to get those timely singles that drive in, 1 or 2 runs when the base is loaded or with second and third, first and second, whatever it may be. You don't have that same kind of skill set on this Yankees team right now, and that is very concerning because if you were living and dying by the long ball, we've talked about this before, you're going to die by it a lot if you have a lot of guys that swing through breaking balls, constantly, and they can't tee up on bad pitching, or they like let mistakes middle go by. We've just seen a ton of that from the Yankees so far. So like, sure, could they go on a few hot streaks here and there? Absolutely. I don't think they're going to play below, 500 baseball the entire season. But at this point, you've dug yourself in such a big hole that it's going to be very difficult for us to come back into this series, like the matchups with like the Rays and the Blue Jays. All these series are going to be so much more significant. And then like the fact that you play all these different teams in the league now, it just leads to a whole nother layer of madness when it comes to beating up on poor teams. If you don't do that, then you're putting yourself in a terrible position when it comes to playing the better teams in the league.
And the Yankees next week, 3 against the Guardians, 3 against the Rays. And the Rays are the best team in baseball right now. And the Guardians we had issue with in Cleveland, and the Yankees look a lot worse. And they're judgeless, and no Cole start in that series. I think we're gonna get Cole on Friday against the Rays, which is huge. But no Cole, no. Cole went on Thursday, so we're gonna get him on Monday. Thursday,
Good.
Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We're gonna get him Tuesday. Okay, so we'll have a Cole start on Tuesday. But then he's gonna miss the Rays series. So this is another test. The Yankees are 2-5 in the last week. This is going to become a 13-game stretch, a 2-week stretch of playoff cusp teams. What do the Yankees do against them? They're fighting against these teams: Minnesota, Texas, Cleveland, and technically the Rays, who I think the Rays are even out of the realm now. They've had a good job of avoiding the injury bug that plagued them last year. So we'll see where they get with guys like Glasnow and McClanahan. Even Eflin is doing great things for them. Franco's been good. Lowe, or Brandon Lau rather, has been awesome, and Randy's had a decent year. So we'll see where they get, because the Rays are also seem like a high potential lottery pick. But the day in and day out guys like Harold Ramirez and Yandy Diaz are also doing it for them. So I don't know. This is giving me 2021 feeling, and I don't want to be there, because the Yankees were about 500 at the All-Star break, and they were doing a lot of this stuff in 2021. And the Rays were the 101, 102 win dominant team throughout the East. The problem is Blue Jays are in their time, and the Orioles are coming, and the Yankees aren't just going to slide into a second, third place finish.
It's 2021, but way earlier. That's the problem. Is it's just like
Yeah.
what am I looking forward to? And I think that just comes down to we need to at this point see a few DFAs, and they need to have those hard conversations in order to show that changes are being made. It might be for optics. I don't care at this point. I just think that you need to cut all the dead weight that's on this team because it's been dragging it down, and it's like a tumor. It's spreading throughout the organization. And yes, there's a lot to look forward to when it comes to like prospects that we have in the weeds and like double A. Like I think Spencer Jones will be up there soon enough. He's tearing it up right now. Jason Dominguez, I think, had a slow start, but now he's picking it up as well. Um, but those guys are still at least a year away from being here. So you're going to have to go external in order to make any kind of adjustments.
The next 3 games against the Guardians, Quantrill Herman. Quantrill's been bad against the Yankees, but is a very good pitcher. Cole Bieber. So now they're throwing their ace. So, not to be on the negative side, Cole gives you the best chance to win. But given this offensive production against Shane Bieber, I mean, we lost 2-1 to Bieber last time, right? And the Yankees had opportunities, and that's when they had a healthy middle of the lineup. Glaber led off with a triple, and they went Judge, Rizzo, Stanton, not producing. So, and then we're gonna end. Actually, no. Bieber is on Wednesday against Schmidt, so the Yankees lose that game. Colds against Bibby or Bibby. He had a good opening start for the Guardians last week. Actually saw that. I assumed that was Bieber. There's a lot of similar letters there.
They love their B's.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Do you
Cleveland
know
is
how to
just
pronounce that name?
How do you spell it?
Bibee. Tanner Bibby or Tanner Bibby.
Bibb. I think it's Bibby. I don't know. I'm not going to butcher it.
Yeah.
I'm going to pretend it's my Bibby from the Sacramento Kings back in the day. Vancouver
Go
Grizzlies.
Kings, go, man.
Oh yeah, that should be. I'm sure that's a great game. We're missing a lot of good basketball because of the Yankees right now.
God fucking damn it.
Oh. But do you think that we see a trade or a DFA within the next 72 hours?
Yes. We need. That was too definitive of a yes. That's my heart wants a yes. So talking about
It should be
Pinstripe
a
Pulse
yes.
here. Yes.
Yes.
But Yankees front office, I don't know. I think Hicks has been hitting decently.
It's just like it's not even like decent. It's like seeing eye singles through the shortstop and third baseman, and like obviously like he's putting up the numbers right now because it's like if you have 6 hits on the day, like total as a team, and you see like, oh, 2 of them are from Hicks, but it's like you watch them, they're not that good of Hicks,
Yeah.
like hits at all.
Yeah.
So
How
it
many of them
like
really
looks nice on
matter?
paper. Yeah, exactly. It's just, I don't think that there's anyone unless like you're talking about like the big guys like Glaber and Rizzo and whatever that are on the roster right now that aren't like safe from a demotion, if I like put it that way. Like
And we've been
Franchi just
talking about
got called
trading
up.
Glaber for forever, being our one valuable roster piece. We can't.
Yeah,
And like the people who said that, we have to keep Glaber, and I like at this point they were right because you can't take the risk of a new piece coming in and not being the above average level middle infield bat that Glaber has been. Like he's our 4 hitter right now, or 4-3, 4-5, however that is. I mean, we have Peraza hitting 2 and Rizzo in 3, and I don't know, like what are the pieces that we give up to get somebody, right? Like we're playing all these guys, showing their value. But is Peraza going? Maybe that's the move. Is like Peraza's played for a few weeks and he can play second and third and be a really good short. Donaldson comes back to get rid of Peraza, but now there goes our third base safety net, right? Like, or unless that's DJ.
yeah.
And God forbid there's any more injuries with Donaldson or with DJ. Like who are we giving up? Like, are we going Jason Dominguez, Spencer Jones to get and a league average outfielder, which we don't have right now?
I mean,
IKF
I think
Hicks and Calhoun today.
I think if you're giving up anyone for Spencer Jones or Dominguez, your return is going to be Juan Soto or Otani. Like it has to be
But we
sky
have
high.
no leverage.
Yeah, here's the thing. Like, so that's the problem there. Is like those guys are out of the question at this very moment. The more realistic option is probably someone like a Jock Peterson or a Cody Bellinger that's going to be on an expiring contract where you're looking at midway through the season, what, 9 million a year, something like that. If it's an $18 million contract for Bellinger, something around that like halfway point. So
And are they going to part ways in May? Probably not. Like you said, midway through the
yeah,
season.
that's
So we have to tough this out.
exactly my point earlier. So that's the thing is like I don't know what kind of moves you can make at this very moment other than just cutting dead weight.
Yeah. And the Yankees hate to do that because, you DFA Hicks today and they're eating still $8 million. It's only been a month.
Imagine how many
And
fewer, yeah, and just imagine like how many fewer headaches we would have had though if they cut the dead weight in the offseason when it should have happened.
exactly.
It would have cleared up all that payroll flexibility. So you're not having to worry about being like right on the top of the third threshold if you bring in someone like Jerickson Profire, for example. Profire could have helped this team out as just a utility man. I don't know even like how good he's doing this season. It doesn't really matter. Just having that kind of veteran presence on the team right now would have been beneficial. So it's perplexing to me that they waited to this point to not make any kind of moves to cut like payroll whatsoever, because that's kind of one thing that they are known for doing every offseason is getting rid of, the fringe guys that aren't quite starters anymore that have kind of lost their luster. And they just simply didn't do that. And they talked about how they weren't done making moves and all that. It like there's so many parts to this equation that just don't add up. And I think that we're all seeing the restlessness of Yankees fans that is justified fully at this point. And sooner or later, the front office is going to have to answer for this. I think this is something that Hal and Cashman need to actually come out and have press conferences about and address the issues that are at hand, because this is beyond just like, oh, they're in a little bit of a skid right now. It's like, no, if you look at the outlook at this very moment and then moving forward, it's still very, very like bleak for months ahead. So I really don't know what the next move is from here.
If the Yankees traded for Ohtani, there any chance that he would play the outfield?
Yes.
Probably. If they have no intention of re-signing him, mutually
Yeah.
beneficial. And imagine what that would do to his leverage, dude. His free agent value. If
Is
Ohtani gets traded to a contender, this is the only thing that this fantasy land argument, all right, anyone who's watching, this is Yankee fantasy land. I understand, all right? But the only thing, if Ohtani comes to the Yankees and he's pitching every fifth day and he gives us 2 to 3 outfield games in between, because Stan's going to be the DH if he's healthy. I mean, and what would that do for Ohtani's free agent value? Because the Yankees can't afford that deal when that happens, but the Yankees need something now, and that's giving up
Rosen,
Dominguez, Jones, and probably like Montas now, right? To get that, I mean,
yeah,
maybe I'd take it. I don't know.
dude's gonna have like 600 million in the bag easy if he does that. He'll have also like a 15 to 20 WAR if he plays the outfield. I think that's the separator of him like not winning the MVP last
And he'll
season is
play a good outfield.
he'll play a great outfield because he's fucking Shohei Ohtani. Like plug him in as super utility. I'm sure he would have the same exact mindset as someone like Oswaldo Cabrera. Oh, I love that position. I've never played it before, but I love it. He's just that good of a talent that it's like if you have him on your team, I don't care what position you're in, you're immediately better. You immediately improve your squad. So I think that's at least the kind of positive outlook that they need, like someone to bring in big dick energy, essentially, is what they need at this very moment. And Otani's got the biggest dick energy of them all in like the best way.
The funny thing about WAR too that you mentioned it is Ohtani could sit on the ground in center field at Yankee Stadium, and he would have a positive fielding WAR, just the way that center field WAR is put. These center fielders who hit like below 200 and have like an OPS in like the high fives are being saved by the fact that they just stand out there. And I know it's a skewed argument because no one with a sub 600 OPS is playing if they're not a superior fielder. So obviously like there isn't that correlation, but I mean
Tell
the
that to the Yankees.
yeah, right.
It's like half their roster right now.
Yeah. When do we think hopes can come up? What has to happen for you I guess we should. Has there been any injury report on Judge? I guess we're not watching the
No.
post game right now.
It,
We would have seen it.
so yeah, I feel like what they said is like I also have my phone here. I don't see Twitter going crazy. I think they were waiting until Monday to like make any kind of definitive decision. They wanted to see, I guess, if his hip was starting to feel better. And I've dealt with hip injuries the last year or so. They are not fun. I have a hip impingement that I'm currently dealing with that I've been in PC for since November. And thankfully he doesn't have one of those. It looks like his MRI came back clean, but still a mild strain can linger for a long time. So we just can't bank on him to come back, you know, being 100% Aaron Judge again. And he was still struggling a good deal when he got injured, even though he had a good game on his birthday. So even if he does come back, I'm still not fully sold that he's going to save this team from being a mediocre team. Um, but it's really tough to gauge what exactly needs to be done. I feel like you have to let go of Hicks and Cordero. I know they're up there because out of necessity at this point, but you have to get rid of them in order to give me any kind of hope that you can make positive additions. So like at least show us that you're making moves that are going to lead to something bigger ultimately. And I need accountability out of the front office saying that this is their mistake. Like we were both excited about the Omar Minaya and Brian Sabian additions. And I'm really curious to like know what it's like being in that atmosphere, like with them there. Like, what do they think about this current roster alignment? How much pushback did they have from Cashman and Fishman and all those guys in the offseason when it came to like potential additions? What do they think about guys that are really tearing up the farm right now, like Spencer Jones? He's our biggest trade ship in my opinion at this point in terms of I think that it's crazy how little adversity he's had in terms of like negative plays in his professional baseball career so far. He's torn it up at every level he's been at. So obviously we need to see him struggle. I think the most we've seen him struggle was when he came to spring training this year. And he showed that he was, swinging and missing through pitches against major league players, which like newsflash, that's bound to happen. This is his first spring training. But do you really want to let go of someone like that for a perennial Hall of Famer? It's such a hard, perplexing, painful conversation to have in dialogue. So like I really am curious what those guys who are masters of the recruiting in the youth development and not just youth development, but the development of the farm, like what they're thinking while looking at this team. Because they must have walked into a disaster this offseason now that we're seeing what the final product is on the field.
I think the things that we need are within the next week or two, which is not going to happen. Donaldson coming back because we need like a DH. Bader coming back. Rodon coming back. Sevy coming back. And then you're looking at, okay, Donaldson plays third, and then Peraza, Glaber, DJ, someone's DHing or within that rotation. And then you have Bader in center. Judge. Forgot about Judge needs to be fully healthy. Cannot go on the
Yeah.
injured list for any period of time. Judge plays right, Bader plays center, and then we're down to the 1- position. And even then it's like, okay, what'll happen? And then maybe that gets back up to a league average offense, slightly above league average, and then Rodon and Sevy make it a high-end starting pitching average. I don't know, but the Yankees are high in whip and low in runs scored, and like that's a terrible formula. They're not a good team of recent. Before we close it out, I think this is a nice summary that I just pulled up on Twitter. Max Manis is a good follow on Twitter, statistician with John Boy Media. Here are the realities of the situation, he says. The Yankees lineup as is stinks. There's no real prospects they can call up. Bader and Donaldson could help, but probably not much. In parentheses, would love to be wrong about this. No impact bats are getting traded soon. So, ... How do we get out of this? And the first reply is from a man named Professor Yankees. He says, we don't. This is what the offseason was for, and they opted to not address the problems. The most crucial reality is this: the Hal, Cash, Boone Yankees are not winning a championship. Definitely not this year. I'm sorry, guys. They're just not built to. It's not the mission. And
Tough.
it's tough. I don't know
But
if Boone is the equation there. But the Hal, we saw Boone being a part of it last year, and I think the biggest thing is Hal and Cash for this year. But it's tough, but it's what's looking up, and we don't have a lot of good answers for you.
yep. And for better or for worse, I just feel like we're going to see some kind of sacrificial lamb. Someone offered as like, you gotta go, just to cut ties and like show some kind of change, which is good, but at the same time, like it needs to be for a purpose. If you
Yep.
fire Boone, it's like you better have an idea of like a contingency plan, what you want to do. And back to the Judge thing, um, if you want to take any kind of positive out of this, this would be a good time. If he is, I really hope he's not hurt, but with hip stuff, you never know. If he does end up on the IL, it kind of makes you get a glimpse of what their contingency plan was going to be if he was to walk in free agency and what that would look like. What do you have as your backup plan if your best piece and your captain leaves? And I think we're going to see those answers soon. I'm really holding my breath about Judge. I cannot reiterate that enough, but I don't have a great feeling about it. Apparently, he had a bat in his hand and his helmet on at some point or another when they were down 10-1 today. So
He was
I
just
know he
antsy.
wants to play.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. He's just
That's
sitting
a
here like,
Justin
I can't
Long
help right
move.
now. Yeah. Yeah, he just needed some circulation moving through his legs. Um, but yeah, it's a weird spot. It's a lose-lose situation either way. If you lose players, I mean, I guess if you give away players, you're losing them. It's addition by subtraction. But at the same time, it's like something negative happens in order for something positive to happen, like eventually. So that's the mindset I'm just going to have at this rate. But I'm going to definitely pay more attention to the playoffs, the NBA playoffs at this rate more than the Yankees in the next week or so, if I'm being honest.
I was about to go there. If you're a New York sports fan, tune into the Knicks, tune into the Rangers, and we'll tell you when to watch the Yankees again. I don't recommend it, honestly. We're gonna do it for you. We'll be here. We'll be watching some of it. We might be half watching at times. If they do anything with the bats that piques our interest, we'll let you know. I think that's a good transition to tell you guys to follow us at Pinstripe Pulse Pod on Instagram and on TikTok, also at Pinstripe_Pulse on Twitter. Probably doing some less live tweeting now because that's a little bit brutal for these games. But we're back on the TikTok. I figured out there's a new AI plugin for Premiere Pro that reduces the time from editing a TikTok from like an hour down to about 10 minutes. So that's very useful. So we'll be there. We got some good clips out that are doing some numbers, but that tends to be the trend with TikTok. A lot of the negative energy from these videos do the best. But I think tune into us and we'll let you know when to listen again. Any last words, Jake?
Um, do better, Yankees. I think that's where I got to be.
Do better. All right. On that note, I
And
don't
go
even
Yankees.
know if I'm going to put music out here. But we will talk to you guys again soon. Again, the next two series are against the Cleveland Guardians and the Tampa Bay Rays, and we'll have hopefully a different outlook after those series. But be prepared for some tough battles, and for some tough pitching as well, and not a lot of offensive improvement unless we get some of our guys back. So thanks for listening. We appreciate you listening to this point in the somber episode, hoping for some uplifting news in the future. But yeah, thanks for tuning in. We'll talk to you guys soon.
Peace.